Welcome to the Culture is Healing podcast, brought to you by Checking In. At Checking In, we create customized wellness apps for First Nations communities, guided by relationship, trust, and community knowledge. We are also grateful to share our Pathways to Healing tool, which supports frontline and support staff in helping community members access healing houses more quickly and with care. To learn more about our work, please visit www.checkingin.co. Thank you for being here and for spending time with us. I hope you enjoy the episode. Aichka. Ait squale, siapnet siatya, antapa huokwalitsa, nit staminas, halal, kawitsan, liaxan. Hello, everyone. My traditional name is Huokwalitsa. My English name is George Harris Jr., and I'm calling you today from my home here in Staminas. This is the community that my father is from. This is the community that my mother married into. And this is the community that my siblings and I were raised in. I belong to George Harris Sr. and my late mother, Sylvia Harris. And my grandparents from my father's side of my family are the late Lawrence and Irene Harris. And my grandparents from my mother's side of my family are the late Bernard and Nora George. And my familial connections to Halalt come from my mother, Sylvia, and my grandmother, Nora. And my connections to Cowitson come from my grandfather, Bernard. And through both sides of my family, I have familial connections to Liaxon. And the name Wokwolitsa is a name that's been passed down for many generations throughout my father's side of my family. I have the honor and privilege of being able to carry that name along with my father, as well as a few other family members. And thank you all so much for taking the time to come in and sitting in circle with me today. Once again, my name is Wokwolitsa, and I'm the host of the Culture is Healing podcast. And I have the honor and privilege of being able to share this space with a new friend of mine, Malina. And I'd like to open the floor for her to introduce herself to you all. Aichka.
Mm, thank you. Thank you, George. Nitsi Malina. Fort Smith Oche and Ninanaskamon. My name is Malina Dawn. I named Fort Smith as one of my homes, and I'm grateful to be here in this conversation today. So, as far as where I come from, I'm part of the Métis Nation in the Northwest Territories. I belong to that nation. That's part of the South Slave region of the Northwest Territories. And Fort Smith, which I named, is where my Nookum and my Mushum, my grandmother and my grandfather, Seraphine and John Evans, they had 16 kids up in Fort Smith. My mom, Gladys, was one of them. And so that is a little bit about my mom's side of the lineage, our Cree Métis. I am a descendant of Francois Beaulieu. We often call him Old Man Beaulieu, and had many, many children. And so I have a lot of ties to the Northwest Territories, but also down to the Red River area of Manitoba. That's where Old Man Beaulieu kind of came from, is that area. My dad's side of the family, John and Marguerite. John, my grandfather, passed just last year, and Marguerite, my grandmother, is still alive, 98 or something like that. My other two grandparents are also, they're both spirit side and have been for a little while. My dad's side of the family is European. I have European roots there. So what I know of that is German English, Irish, Scottish, some Romanian, some Hungarian as well. Because I haven't spent that much time over there on those lands and connecting, I don't know as deeply that side of my family, but I have learned how uh, our blood really informs who we are and how we show up in the world. It's been a pretty interesting thing to notice and to learn about myself as I've aged. And so I can see where certain traits that I have, they do come from that side of the family, even if I don't know exactly how that blood
Mm,
has really informed that journey. Um, and yeah, and I was raised on Treaty 4 territory in so called Saskatchewan on a farm with my parents, Ken and Gladys Ream. And um, yeah, it's been a really good life so far.
mm,
Thanks
that's
for
good.
having me here. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate, even just hearing you say, that, the a lot of your traits and stuff like that are like passed through your blood. And I thinking back to some of the conversations, like with my late mother, she always kind of jokingly said, she goes, not only do you like look like your father, she's like, but you also got his stupid sense of humor. And always made me laugh because she always used to joke around about that.
Yeah.
And then I would bug her back and be like, "Oh, where do I get that stubbornness from then? Is that from you?" And then she'd laugh. She goes, "You better believe it."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I
Yeah.
always joke around. Yeah, I got my dad's stupid sense of humor and my mom's ruthlessness and her determination in life. So
Yeah.
I love hearing stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
Ichika, thanks for sharing your stories. That makes me think of some of the fonder stories that I carry with me as well. So,
Ah,
Ichika.
yeah.
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 Yeah. And so we're taking a look at some of our, traditional ways of being and, sharing a little bit about our history and who we are and where we come from. And, I appreciate hearing, your connections to the lands and connections to Turtle Island and love hearing, people share about their families. And undoubtedly that really does, bring a lot of connection back to community and to culture for a lot of our people. And, taking a look into our, even the name of our podcast, I always love sharing is culture is healing, and that's such a powerful space for a lot of our people. Our culture definitely does hold such a great power and such a great space in a lot of our communities and a lot of our hearts because it does bring a lot of healing for all of our people. And so
Mhm.
when I have the opportunity to say and to share, culture is healing, and when I say that, what does that mean to you, Melina?
Mm. Yeah. Well, from what I've learned so far and what I've experienced, when I hear that, culture helps us to understand who we are in the world and where we belong. Um, I think about, of course, land and waters first, like wherever that original territory is or has been, and how the land shapes us. Like one little example that's popping up right now is that, I was raised on a farm in southeastern Saskatchewan, and we had those big, big, beautiful skies. And I was raised Christian, but as my mom says, I have always been the type to dance to my own drum beat. And I kind of started, noticing the difference between how I felt when I was in church and how I felt when I was just outside on the farm, on the land with those big skies, just captivated by the sky. And I felt really close to the Creator, much closer there than I did any time that I was in church. And I
Mm,
noticed this when I was really young, and I decided I wanted to go my own way, away
mm,
from the religion. And my parents, bless their hearts, I think they saw early on that I was a pretty independent thinker and they just wanted me to find my own way. And so they supported that. But there's like something in my blood that could recognize the divinity or the sacredness of life just when I was outside, just
Mm,
when I was on the land and when I was watching the skies or watching rainstorms or whatever it was. And so that is what I think of first when it comes to culture, is that deep connection to land and how it informs who we are. And then of course I think about the ceremonies and the songs that get passed down and the
mhm,
storytelling and the rituals and the ceremonies. It's Culture is so rich. It speaks to us on all of these different levels. And I think the wisdom in that is that we get to see ourselves as a whole being, that we're multidimensional, and we have the whole medicine wheel. We have our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual self. And culture, it speaks to all aspects of us. So there's this feeling of
mhm,
wholeness and belonging to land and to each other and to this shared language. And I think that's what's so healing about it, is it's not just speaking to you through your mind. It's this holistic way of being in the world and with each other and building proper relationship. And I think that's really what's at the root of culture being healing, because it's a relational way of life.
mm.
Mm.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Um, yeah, I had never shared with you before either, but yeah, I used to um, had the very fortunate opportunity to spend a few summers living with my grandma, my grandma Nora, and I look back at those summers fondly. Um, and it was really neat to observe her and how she walked this earth. Um, she was she was a lady who was very much involved in a lot of different communities.
Mm.
So not only did she belong to our traditional homes in our Coast Salish territory, but she also belonged into our Shaker faith, and she also attended um, church as well. And so I had the opportunity to go with her in those summer months to a lot of different, religious ceremonies. Going to Shaker church and going to Pentecostal church, and eventually in my kind of late teens, kind of early 20s, I eventually started attending Pentecostal church for a while,
Mm.
and that was felt very good and felt very uplifting, and actually went to a Pentecostal Bible college to be a youth pastor. And throughout that time, I was very fortunate that I had the opportunity. My parents lived, and I was in Abbotsford, and my parents were working for Correctional Service Canada, and they were in the Fraser Valley, and so they were living in Chilliwack, and that's where my uncle Tom Stottless, my auntie Elaine, she's from Yucacuse, and I had the opportunity to stay at their house quite frequently with my auntie, and she often invited my parents and myself to her family's traditional home. And yeah, I don't know, there was just something about attending our home that very much felt like it was the same type of feeling that people would get from going to church and singing those Christian songs and stuff like that. And but for me, like, there was just something about being back in one of our traditional homes that just felt so right. And hearing that like drum beat resonated, it felt like it connected right to my heart.
Yeah.
There was just something about it, and I was like, oh man. And so finally I finished my schooling, and I had opportunity to go and work at a church. But just like there was just something that was calling me back home, and I like very much throughout my whole schooling time, I was often calling my mother and like asking and looking for guidance. And I just said to her, I was like, Mom, I have no idea what I'm gonna do, no clue. I was like, but I don't think this opportunity is the right one for me. And I think, I think I need to go home. She goes, well, creators, giving you this path, and you're being called back home. She's like, if that's what you need to do, then you got to go home and do it. Because if you don't, you're not going to feel fulfilled in the work that you're doing. So I came home, and yeah, I never looked back. Did not have any regrets for not taking that other job. And I had the opportunity to really push and connect back into my community and into my culture. And that really set the path for the work that I had done up until now, to put me in that place to really connect back to who I am and where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so thank you for sharing your story, because that really had me thinking about my own journey as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think that, culture is so powerful that it's like, it just waits for us to return. And from listening to your story, it made me think about how in my 20s, I've always been a traveler and very adventurous. And pretty soon after I graduated high school, I moved to the big city of Calgary to live with one of my sisters. And I just kind of started to go into adventure mode, and I started traveling a lot in my 20s. And what I realized after, of course, this is hindsight in like my mid 30s or early 30s looking back, I was exploring other cultures. So I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been practicing and studying yoga since I was 17. So that was right around that time, right after I graduated, I found yoga, or yoga found me.
Mm,
And so I traveled to India and started to learn that deeper medicine. I traveled down to South America and I got involved with the South American indigenous ways of life, which is like some of those medicine paths like ayahuasca. I spent some time with the Native American church in Canada. And I traveled around and around and around, and I didn't know it then what it was that I was looking for, but these were the spaces I kept ending up in. And
mm,
then at a certain point, I was trying to cross the border to go down to the States, but I was denied entry. And excuse me, I got redirected. I had nowhere to go because I didn't have a home in Canada because I was very nomadic. So I went back to stay with mom and dad up in Fort Smith. And it had been a while since I had been up there. Um, we had traveled up there as kids, but I had never really spent much time as an adult in the territories. And so I ended up moving up there for about 5 years. And shortly after I moved up there, I sat in my first drum circle.
mm,
And it's very much like what you just said, that when I heard that drum, it just, oh, it went right to my core and it pulled
mm,
water from my eyes, sacred water. And it was like, it felt like quite a profound moment of, oh. And it was after that, it was in the years after that, that I started to realize that I was traveling the world looking for my own culture in other cultures. I was looking for what
mm,
was in my own blood. But because of residential school history, which has massively affected my family, most of my aunts and uncles have been part of it, part of residential schools, and the cutting of those cultural ties, those teachings didn't get passed on to me. And so I had this like body sort of felt and spiritual felt sense that I was following through the world, but I didn't know it was my own culture because we weren't raised
Mm.
to see ourselves as native, because it also wasn't really safe to be native because
Mm-hmm.
racism has been and was very rampant back then, even in that small town. So when I sat in that drum circle, it was like a coming home to myself. And then after that, I had gotten gifted a drum from a Native woman who worked in the women's shelter with me. And it just went on. And I happened to have that natural gift for catching songs. And I
Mm.
had no idea that that lived within me. And I kept getting gifted drums and kind of, learning in that way. And so I just think that this is it's it's fascinating and it's sad at the same time, in a way,
Mm.
how these the overcultures that we live in have gotten so deep into our own psyches we can't recognize or figure out who we are, or even realize that we're looking for our culture sometimes. And I'm so grateful that it showed up on my path in my 20s, and so I've been like reconnecting to it ever since, and it's absolutely changed my life and brought a lot of healing.
Mm.
Hmm.
Wow. Aichka.
Hmm.
Yeah, and big one, and kind of almost tying into some of the work that we're doing at checking in, and having that opportunity. And obviously, big shout out to you for being featured on our app, with your yoga practice, and bringing some of that holistic health aspect into the work. We've created quite a few cultures healing apps for indigenous communities, having that opportunity to really bring healing back to our communities through language and culture and traditions. And we're having that opportunity to capture some of these teachings and being able to share them on these apps that we've created for these indigenous communities. And it's really bringing that connection piece throughout generations, to have the opportunity for our elders to be able to, well, one, preserve their voices and the teachings that they're passing on to all of the relatives that come from their communities, and also to connect some of those who might not have had the same opportunities like me to grow up in community, and who might not have that opportunity to go and sit down with an elder, or to go to our traditional homes and hear those teachings. And so there are some of those teachings that are shared. And we're even taking the opportunity with some of the expanded work to help the helpers in community. We've just recently um, put out a launch for a Pathways to Healing tool to help the helpers, as we're
Yeah.
looking to help those relatives who are seeking assistance to get into like detox and treatment. And we've kind of expanded our work a little bit further beyond just getting people there. We're looking at the continuum of care, looking to see how we can help those relatives as they're making their journey from graduating from those healing houses, or what Western society calls treatment centers.
Hmm.
What happens to those relatives when they come home, and looking for post healing care opportunities. And I was thinking, some of the work that we've done with it's out in Laleham, for example. It's a healing house here on Vancouver Island, and we are working with them to create a post healing care app, for so that the relatives who graduated from the healing house, that they have some of those teachings, some of those songs, some of those words of encouragement from the elders in the healing house that can carry with them, when they're on their on their own back home in their healing journey.
Yeah.
And so it's been such an amazing opportunity for us to be able to, empower those communities to really engage in with their young people, and engage those people, those relatives who are on their healing journey, connect back to culture, and it's such been such a powerful journey to witness. And so, thank you for your part in that journey as well.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with my auntie Julie, um, about culture. We were talking about our lineage and our ways of seeing and being in the world, and we were talking about how important it is that whatever you're teaching, you need to be living that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one of the biggest teachings that I was lucky to receive in like early on in my journey, so that it's not something that's just like performative, but it, like you said, it changes the way you walk in the world. And this is how it helps other people. But we can't be passing on those teachings to uplift the community around us if we're not first embodying them, if we're not
Mm-hmm.
first going to whatever the ceremonies are, or praying, or smudging, or whatever the practice is. There's lots of different, of course, depending on the nation. Um, and then the other thing that I remember she said was how, in our culture, addiction is really viewed as like a spiritual sickness. It's a deep disconnect to culture and to
Mm-hmm.
our ways, because it helps us to see ourselves. So I'm so glad that you're doing that work, and that you have elders that are helping and kind of coming at it from as many angles, every different direction of the medicine wheel, until
Mm-hmm.
people can kind of clean out the body in that way and remember who they are in the world. Culture is just one of the most powerful tools that I've personally been through and have witnessed in others too. So I'm so glad you're doing that work.
Mm. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think too, looking at some of the work that you have done, like in particular in partnership with us here at Checking In, and that yoga work is so powerful.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about some of the other work that I've had the opportunity to partake in. Um, I know one of the first times I'd done more of a like guided meditation, and it really um, it was enlightening. I was doing a sweat ceremony with a drug and alcohol counselor that works used to work here in our nation, and we did this like guided meditation, and he was like getting us to, as we were like sitting in this home, to sit, and he was like, like getting us grounded into the space, and he's like, and take that, and we very fortunate that we had a lot of space to move a little bit, and he was like, take time, like stretch out your arms. And so, like, we all kind of like spread our
Mhm.
arms out, and he's like, okay, now gather yourself in tight. How does this feel as you're making these movements? And then we've had opportunities now in some of the other work that we're doing, specifically with like Zoughton. They have someone who does like breath work,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of different aspects that are coming in that I think our people are resonating with. And
Yeah.
and one of our staff members is doing like some somatic training, and so we've had opportunities to do more like grounding space where it just kind of, and
Yes.
makes me like feel so good when I have that opportunity. And like even some of my own practices now since the beginning of the new year, um, I I listen to music quite frequently, and so this year I was like, all right, I'm going to be like a little bit more intentional with what I have on in the background. And I thought back to some of these other sessions that I've been in with either it was either like yoga, or we did some sessions with my friend Tyrell, and he was had some music playing in the background, and it was more meditative and more relaxing.
Mhm.
And so like this first like few months of this new year, I've really been listening into the background more like meditative, more calming music in the background, and it just feels like it's put me into a different headspace now in the work I'm doing. And so I just wanted to hear, your own personal connection and thoughts and how that's that particular part of you, and um, you've been able to share it in our work at Checking In. Just wanted to connect
Yeah.
with you on that.
Yeah. Ooh, it's a big it's a big conversation because it's yoga is a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it came to me when I was 17 and I started reading the books about the philosophy and about the yoga shapes and realized it was a very, very deep way of being in the world. I had no idea. But I started to experience, healing kinds of things as I did yoga. And the thing that I love about yoga is that I often describe it as a gentle confrontation. So it's an
Mm-hmm.
invitation to enter into your body, but without force, without pushing past any of your boundaries. Like there's a way of entering your body that honors exactly where you are in the moment, and through breath and through the guidance of the mind into the body, it's just so exquisite. And sometimes I call yoga, it's kind of like a coyote. Like it's a little bit of a trickster, because people come to yoga with a certain maybe idea of what it is based on whatever they know about it or what they've seen in the media or wherever. And even if it starts as I just want to move my body, or I want to get stronger, or I want to get more flexible, because it will do that if you stick with it. But if they come in through that and they stay, they'll start to notice the healing effects of it pretty rapidly, because the breath is so powerful. And because you know, we're talking about ceremony from culture, I see the yoga practice as a certain type of ceremony. It connects
Mm-hmm.
you to yourself and it connects you to the creator. It's meant to help you connect to your soul and to like grow in this life and to heal and to learn about who you are at the deepest, most authentic part of yourself, and to help you get
Mm-hmm.
free from your suffering, because we all suffer in different ways. And so there's a lot of parallels between the native teachings that I've been learning over the years and the yoga teachings. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
I've like been fortunate to land in this life walking these two worlds and weaving those teachings together so that whoever's in the room with me, I can speak to their life experience. And even though yoga is very, very deep, like you can go far and vast and never really fully understand what it is in this lifetime, it's also very simple. And that's what I love about it, is there it doesn't have to be so complicated. You just come back into your body and you breathe, and then you'll start to
Mm-hmm.
notice what happens. And I really think as native people, we need to come into that part of our medicine wheel more. After
Mm-hmm.
working with a lot of native youth and adults, and through conferences and through retreats out on the land and all sorts of things, what I know now is that the deeper healing that we really are needing, it is going to happen the more you get into your body, because your body is where we keep all of our memories, and we keep the hard things, the traumatic things that have happened to us and our ancestors. They still live in our physical body and our tissues. And so when we come into our body in a good way, we start to do that healing, and then it starts to relieve the pains and the
Mm-hmm.
aches, whether it's mental or physical. So it's really, really powerful. And um, it's just such an honor that that's what I get to do with every day of my life. And I try to serve as many people as I can. And I wish I could duplicate myself, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a real honor.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I think there's definitely a lot of those parallels like you're sharing, between our indigenous ways of being, and that mindfulness space that I've definitely been finding myself going back to, and thinking back. I remember I was up in Numgeese territory back in the summertime, and I had the opportunity to go and do like a traditional bath with the Numgeese Wellness Center workers, and one of the relatives that were there, finding some healing, and we're getting ready to go in, and the worker, she was, sharing with us, like, as we get in the water, she's like, take a note of what you're feeling, whether it's,
Yeah.
that pain from the cold water, that stinging feeling that you get, and take note of your breathing as you're entering the water. Take note of that rumbling, in your soul, and in my language, it's Sali. And then, we went through the ceremony, and I did my bath, and I walked out, and I was really thinking of my grandma, Nora. She always shared, like, when you have those opportunities to, like, find yourself in a healing space, she's like, you're gonna sleep really good that day. And she goes, the next day is when you really need to get back into that headspace. Take note of how you're feeling, because you've been cleansed.
Yeah.
And when you come and find yourself and you're not feeling the way you felt the day after you got help, then you need to go back. You need to go back to find healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, throughout this last, like, few months of being, mindful of my own healing space and my own healing mind, and getting back into that healing space, it's been really uplifting and enlightening to really engage in that part of myself a little bit more,
Yeah.
because now I'm finding that I'm taking better care of myself now in a holistic health sense. And yeah, it's been such a journey, and I love being able to share with people, some of those teachings that have been passed on to me, and love hearing your stories as well, my friend.
Yeah,
Much
thank
gratitude.
you. I love I love how she expressed that to you of like notice how you're feeling and then notice how and when that starts to change so that you can see that you're like straying from that good feeling or being at your center or whatever it is. And the yoga practice, it's really about maintenance. You take
Mm-hmm.
care of on a steady basis your physical body, your emotional body, your heart, your feelings, um, your mind, and that connection to your spirit. And I think that this is what people learn when they stay close to ceremony, whether it's yoga or whether it's culture, is that like as humans, we pick things up along the way and we can
Mm-hmm.
get bogged down with hearing somebody's story or going through something that was really hard or like whatever it is. It's like we're kind of like Velcro when we're picking up the experiences of our life on the daily, and we need to continually cleanse and clear
Mm-hmm.
our energy and reconnect to that deeper part of ourselves. And it's not ever like a one and done thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
keep coming back. And the more that you stay, the easier it gets to be in that energy. And I think that that's what starts to create those bigger shifts in health and those bigger shifts in being connected to community and then also being of service to others. This kind of brings me back to what my aunt was saying, where it's like if you're going to be sharing something with the world, make sure you are in the deep practice of it. Otherwise, you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
out of integrity and you can only take people as far as you've gone down the path. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of take that seriously and make sure that my yoga practice is, it's for me, it's become a way of life now, but it took
Mm.
practice for it to become as natural as it is now. And I think that's true for all of our different cultural practices.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that that teaching that had been passed on to you. Within regards to you know, it's always kind of that saying is a practice what you preach type of thing, right? And you're the ones that are out there who are sharing those teachings. And I was going to ask you if there's any um, you know teachings that have been passed on to you that really help guide you in your daily walk.
Mhm. Yeah, that's definitely one of them. I think another one that was quite important to learn early on that I got from one of my elders has to do with leadership. And if you're someone who's in a leadership position, it's important that you take yourself off of the pedestal that people are inevitably going to put you on,
Hmm.
and just keep coming back to that, the humanity, the shared, like, the teaching of the circle. We're all sitting in a circle. We are equal. We might have
Hmm.
different purposes, and depending on how society or the overculture looks at those purposes, we might have an idea that one is better than the other, but it's not true. We all have special gifts and we all have something to offer. But sometimes if you end up in like more of the limelight or more of a like a bigger, louder leader in your community, people will put you on a pedestal. And so being authentic and being relatable and always taking myself off of that pedestal has been a
Hmm.
practice of mine for a long time. Um, and I was very grateful to receive that one. And I think that another one is really, what I love about, my native culture is that it's like the foundational teachings of how to be a good human. I
Mm.
feel like that's really what it's about, is like this is how you walk in the world in a good way. And part of that is learning how to feel your feelings. This is something that a lot of people, I've realized in teaching yoga, because this is what happens when I teach yoga, is people start to come into contact with what's in their heart, and there's some feelings that need to be felt, and it's really as simple as that. But if you never got taught how to feel your feelings all the
Mm.
way through like a circle, then those emotions, they get stuck in your body, and then that's when things can turn into mental agitation, mental dis-ease, physical dis-ease, because everything in your being is connected. So one of the biggest things that I do, that I guide people through, is feeling their feelings and learning how to grieve and
Mm.
learning how to let go and how to honor and how to understand that, there's the spirit world and there's the physical world, and we walk in them both.
Mm.
And everything has a season, everything has a time, everything blooms and everything dies. And so it's that cyclical nature of existence that if you don't have the some of the basic teachings of when something changes in your life, or somebody dies, or you lose your job, whatever it is, there's a grief cycle that you need to go
Mhm.
through to be able to feel that completely so that you can move forward in a good way. And I know that in Native communities, there's a lot of grief.
Mhm.
And this is part of why, people turn to things to help them turn off those feelings because they don't have those skills.
Mm.
So, learning how to feel your feelings, learning how to be with your emotions, and learning how to grieve are very, very, very important to live a good life. And I'm grateful to the elders that have taught me that and have brought me through some ceremonies when I was down on my knees and going through some of the
Mm.
hardest parts of my life, dealing with, codependent relationship, and just like not feeling powerful enough in myself to live my life the way that I needed to. They helped me. They helped me grieve. They helped me cry,
Mm.
and gave me permission to shed that sacred water. We call it sacred water because it cleanses your
Mhm.
heart. And I think that that's one of the most important things, and not just Native people. Like all people need these teachings, but that one kind of sticks out, as well as connecting to joy, like on the other side of that spectrum, that
Mm,
that's healing too, that we don't have to just be in the deep, hard, scary sort of part of healing, that healing can be sweet too. We can heal through laughter. We can
mhm,
heal through dancing. We heal when we sing together. We heal when we drum together. We heal when we're
mm,
in our joy and when we celebrate the wins and the successes of our lives. We heal when we spend time in relationship that feels nourishing, and that
mm,
that is really important too. So I like to sort of like make sure that I'm speaking to the full spectrum of the healing experience. And those are some of the teachings that keep me centered every single day.
mm, mm. Hi,
Mhm.
Chika. Yeah, I know. Just like hearing you talk too. I love that. I know my grandma. Yet again, I always turn back to a lot of the teachings that my grandma shared. And she always said to us, like, you walk humbly in this world. You're not better than anyone else in this world.
Yeah.
And I always carry that with me, and so I've had the opportunity now to um, do a little bit of like public speaking from time to time. And like I remember I was speaking at a conference in Toronto, and the people that were organizing, um, when I walked in, they're like, "Oh, we got you set up, and we got you with this like podium, and you'd be standing there with your microphone." And I was like, I felt so uncomfortable with all of that, and I was like, and good thing I showed up early because I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Um, can you set me up like on the floor and just on the same level as everybody else? Just set me up at one of the tables at the front or whatever. And the tech guy was like, "Oh, okay. Is that you sure that's what you want?" I'm like, "Oh my, I am so sure." And so he did all the changes and ran all the wires and did all this stuff, and I just shared with everyone. I was like, I don't want to be on that platform behind me with this podium or whatever they call it, this standing area, and um, that's not what I was taught. It's not how I exist in this world. I'm not above you. I'm on the same level. We're just human beings here who want to help other human beings.
Yep.
And so I carry that throughout my life. And there's been a few times now where I've spoken, and it was in one of the more recent ones. I was speaking in a larger group, and so we were standing on this stage, and we had the little podium thing that we were standing in front of the microphone, and we went through everything just fine. And like near the end of my own section to talk, I was like, if there's anyone who wants to connect on a personal level, by all means, come and talk to me after. Like that's I'm at a space right now where you can't approach me because of the difference in me being on this stage and having this platform in front of me and all this. But if you want to connect and talk after, let's be humans together.
Mhm.
And then yet again, I think kind of uh, having an opportunity to speak, and having organizations being willing to like meet me at my level and set up spaces. And I remember I did um, a joint session with my friend Katie, and we set the room up and a separate space where we were all sitting in a circle together, and we had the opportunity, and I was like, this is how it's meant to be in our communities. This is how I'm hoping it'll be out in Western society. We're all here together, we're all on the same level, and let's have this open and honest conversation here, human to human. And I think that's definitely been one of the things that has really helped me in like my day job and my like all of the other work that I do. um is really setting that tone for how the work should be done. And I think that's how my grandma would have envisioned it to be. And so, yeah, thank you for sharing your teaching, and that's been passed to you and really connects with me on my own personal journey and how my grandma taught me too. So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. And, as we're, kind of talking about teachings and, sharing the ones that have been passed on to us, I want to um, offer the floor to you for you to be able to share, any words of advice or any encouragements to our listeners here on the Culture is Healing podcast.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I feel like I named a number of things already in our conversation that are really at the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of healing. And I think that when it comes to healing, you have to um, find the right people to guide you. It's
Mm-hmm.
like looking for the right therapist, you know. Sometimes you have to try a bunch of different, people out. And it can be that way with our healing journey where you just keep trying, like keep trying, don't stop just because you had an experience that didn't feel quite right or it wasn't quite what you were looking for, but like
Mm-hmm.
keep going because you never know when you're going to meet that person that is going to profoundly change the trajectory of your life. And healing is not just it's not just something that happens eventually. It's something that we do need to put effort and intention into. Like you meet it halfway. And I know
Mm-hmm.
that it can be hard to start and it can be scary because of the things that, we've experienced, whatever the life story is. But the more that you do it, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of keeps coming back to that place of learning the basics of being a good human. Like find other people in the community, find spaces wherever your community is that are doing good work to connect people to themselves and to connect people to the creator, and so that they remember who they are, so that you can remember who you are. Like wherever those, and like both of us have mentioned different spaces that we've both been in that were very healing, that were not in our direct cultural bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
um, it is I would say it's different when it's your own blood culture, much it just lands very differently.
Mm-hmm.
But there's meditation groups out there, and there's all sorts of different, friendship centers and places you can go to learn different skills, learn how to sew and craft. Healing can come through the arts big time.
Mm-hmm.
um, but to keep trying and keep going until you figure it out. um, I think that one of the biggest obstacles on the healing path is when we stop,
Mm-hmm.
just give up. And if you do end up in a place like that, what my elders would say is pray.
Mm-hmm.
Pray to your creator, to your ancestors, your guides, whoever it is that you pray to, and ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Ask to clear whatever's in the way mentally so that you can just take the next step. And if there's no one else around, go to the land, be
Mm-hmm.
with water. Like these are such helpers, such elders to us. Sometimes, some parts of my life when I was really struggling, just lighting a candle was it just it did there was a presence, because there's
Yeah.
presence in the elements. And if I felt really alone, I would light a candle. I would pour a cup of tea and just spend time just present with that tea. I would
Mm-hmm.
smudge because I have the smudging practice, or take a shower, take a
Mm-hmm.
bath if you can't get out to the land. Like, see
Mm-hmm.
how it can be very, very, it can be a lot simpler and a lot closer to us than we realize. It's our thinking that keeps us disconnected from it. So that's kind of, I guess, some of what I would say, and to learn to feel your feelings and learn to
Mm-hmm.
feel and honor what has passed so that you can live life here and now. And find out what your gifts are. Like everybody
Mm,
has something to offer community, something to offer the landscape of humanity. Each and every single one of us has a gift, and to find that gift and then to share it. That's what I would say
mm.
about that. Yeah.
Oh, my friend, that is amazing. As you're sharing some of that, I wanted to show you. I have my candle lit, and yet again, that's just kind of something that's been passed on to me.
Yeah.
My grandma always shared, her the power of prayer. You pray to Creator. She always prayed for wisdom, strength, and guidance.
Yeah.
Um, and also that as you're sharing, those, not everyone has the ability to access, those healing waters. But, yet again, I think we live in a modern day age where we're lucky enough we can walk over to a tap and find that cold healing water.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been feeling it this last like little while. And so today I at the end of my shower, I turn that hot water off, and I partaken in a cold shower this morning just because I know I needed it,
Yeah.
because I could feel that imbalance where my Sali needed to come back closer to me and to the center of me. And so, that work is so powerful. And so thank you
Yeah.
for sharing, because that's definitely what I've been partaking in this last, you know, especially, I kind of have shared these teachings with our team here, and I know Sean, our colleague and our leader, he's partakes in the burning of a candle now, and I know our podcast producer Carissa is starting to partake in our burning of the candle, and I do it very much like my grandma had shared. She's like, you pray because you never know what Creator has in store for you this
Yeah.
day. And so I every day I come into my office, even before I turn my computer on, before I get started into whatever the day has in store for me, that candle is lit.
Yeah.
And I have so many candles now. I have like a big bin of them because I go through so many.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
and it's just something that's so needed and so powerful. And so yeah, thank you for sharing your own thoughts and connecting to my own teachings and my own practices as well. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that, my friend Haichka.
Thank you.
And as we're kind of looking at our conversation here, and we're coming near to the end of our journey, um, I'd love to open the floor to you to be able to share with our audience the work that you have going on now, and if there's any opportunities for you to partner with any of our listeners and they wanted to get a hold of you, you can give yourself a little bit of a shout out here, my friend.
Okay. Um, yeah, so the work I'm doing right now, I am still teaching yoga very steadily. So I teach in person at a studio called One Yoga Vancouver. Cool thing about that studio is Indigenous people can get a free pass to all classes forever. So if you want to come to class, it's free. And I love that they do that so much. I teach yoga online. I have my own Patreon platform for people that can't practice with me in person. So if anyone wanted to get into the yoga side, where I always am teaching and speaking to the Indigenous teachings as well, that could be a way to connect. Um, my friend and I, so Shayla Stonechild, who founded Matriarch Movement, it's a nonprofit. We just dropped it's virtual medicine circles, and we're going to be doing those for a year. The first one is on the spring equinox, but every month we're going to share so that new people can join in. And they're basically wellness sessions that are free for Indigenous women, girls, and Two Spirit people. So we have that happening. And besides that, if anyone wanted to reach out for me to bring yoga or share yoga with any of anywhere really, they can contact me through my website, malinadawn.com. I'm uh, I'm just really trying to bring as much good medicine to the world as possible while I'm here. So those are a few of the ways to connect with me these days.
Mm,
Yeah.
Hi, Chika.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much for taking the time and sharing the space with me today. And I really appreciate you coming and sitting and sharing this meaningful conversation. I want to thank the listeners who are coming back to our Culture is Healing podcast. Thank you all for your time, and I hope to catch you all in the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Bye for
Aichka.
now.
Ewe.